this. Most of my committee members are to my right, which is a great place to be. And there's the far right. Well, welcome to the first 2006 House Motor Vehicles Committee meeting. The camera is on, so we all want to look our best and say our best. The agenda for today is dear a series of bills, but before we start that, I would like you to consider, you all have new rules for the committee in your folders. Hopefully these got out last week. And these are rules that really put us in a position to allow us to operate in the new venue of these TV cameras. As I look at these, most of these rules from 13.3 on down on the third page are the new rules, with the exception of the plate rules found on pages, the bottom of page 3, 4, and 5, which would be 21 on. I'll just quickly roll through those so that you know what they are. First of all, 13.3 is the indication that the committee meeting will be held, full committee meeting will be held on Tuesday, and I have the discretion as chairperson to schedule another meeting if we need it. I think heretofore we've been doing Tuesdays and Thursdays with regularly scheduled. We're going to try and minimize that and do more in less. Those in the audience and committee members, 14, are asked to place in silent mode cell phones, pagers, and other similar devices. We are on a camera here. We're webcasting to a lot of people, and so we really don't need that interruption. And I'd ask all the committee members, including myself, which I will do right now, to turn off my cell phone. Moving right ahead. In terms of 15, anyone in the committee wishes to speak to a member of the committee while the meeting is in progress has to request that through the committee staff, which is Greg Foster, and our intern, which is, oh, there she is. And why don't you give them your name, because I'm going to mispronounce it. Melissa General. Just tell her if you want to speak, and speak to a member of the committee, and she'll make that happen. The committee staff, we're going to have a seating chart so that I have the opportunity to push the right button to turn you on. So I probably said that incorrectly, but in any event, I will push the right button, hopefully, to turn your microphone on in a corrected statement. The 17 recognition to speak, and you're not on the agenda, you must sign in so the staff can notify me that that is your desire. And generally, it'll be our procedure to have all testimony done during the subcommittee hearings on these bills. It'll be full committee consideration of the bill as it's being presented by its author. 18, if you're going to present written evidence, you have to give us a copy of enough for all the committee members in advance. 19, no one shall occupy the floor at a time, in time determined by the chairperson. In other words, I set the time for the amount of time you have to speak, if in fact that becomes an issue. 20, chairperson may disconnect any committee member's microphone if he or she is determined to be out of order, or if his or her allotted time is expired. I did not write that, by the way, because this is a very friendly committee and always has been. But that's kind of in there based upon a standard set of committee rules that gives us latitude, particularly since we're on the webcast, and we want to make sure that we act with all decorum during that period of time. Those are the rule changes. Are there any questions? I'll entertain them for committee now. Mr. Powell, your number is, Mike?
29. Mr. Chairman, under Rule 13, I have a great amount of concern about this. In the legislative process, whether in subcommittee or in full committee, a lot of times as issues are debated, over the process of this.
Move your microphone.
in the process, Mr. Chairman, of in the legislative process, when we're hearing legislation, a lot of times there are things that come to mind or changes. And if I'm reading this right, that under this rule, then before anything comes to this, an amendment from a member or a substitute has to go through a screening committee called the Review Subcommittee. So is that not, in fact, stifling some dialogue and debate on needed issues?
Well, Mr. Powell, nobody is attempting, on this committee never has attempted to stifle any discussion, as you well know, since we've served approximately 10 sessions together on this committee, and that's always been the way. I'll just read the rule, and it says, unless waived by the chairperson, all committee substitutes and amendments that are being offered for a full committee meeting shall be submitted to the review subcommittee, which shall consist of chairperson, vice chairperson, secretary, 24 hours prior to the regularly scheduled full committee meeting. Upon review of the substitute and/or amendments, the review subcommittee shall designate any of the following special rules in relation to bills and resolutions to be amended. Definition of open rule, modified open rule, or structured rule. The way I read this is that committee review is only to designate whether this bill should come out and be recommended, if it does come out, open, modified, or structured, according to the Rules Committee determination of that. And that's all it is. It does not have anything to do with an opportunity for you to submit changes unless, well, I'm sorry, it would, because the open rule says it will, effectively. But all we're really determining is whether it should be open, structured, or modified structured. That's the only thing. We're not determining content or anything else, and not making any changes to that in terms of the way the committee conducts its operations. I think it's incumbent on us to review this prior to the point in time we have a committee meeting, so that we actually do know whether or not we're going to recommend it come out open, structured, or modified structured, as you know.
But in fact, is this not by giving a 24-hour notice and it being screened by the review committee, would that not prohibit members from, in a debate in the committee, from us submitting amendments or substitutions?
No. Unless waived by the chairperson, all committee substitutes and amendments. In other words, and it's my determination that if committee members have amendments or a substitute is essential for the operation of this committee, that I'd waive that requirement.
But that would be based upon the discretion of the chairman.
That's the discretion of the chair.
So if I understand it right, if the chair did not want a particular amendment submitted or a substitution, then you'd basically rule it out, and there'd be no debate on an amendment.
Well, I think my interpretation of this, Mr. Powell, is that I would make that determination based upon whether or not how it's going to be reported out, open, structured, or modified structured. You can put that in the record.
Thank you.
Are there any other questions from members of the committee? I'll then entertain a motion to accept the rules.
So moved.
Is there a second? All in favor, say aye. Opposed? Opposed. No opposed. Okay, thank you. Let's move ahead. We have with us today the Governor's Office of Highway Safety. Its Director, Mr. Bob Dallas. If you'll introduce your guest, Mr. Dallas is going to take a few moments to tell us about a program called Time that he is involved with, and I think it's a good thing for all of us to understand regarding highway safety in the state.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, Mr. Vice Chairman. I appreciate the opportunity to take a few minutes to talk about time, which in our parlance is traffic incident management enhancement. Let me start off by reading the mission statement, and then Rory Howe, to my right, will discuss what time is all about. Mr. Howe is with the Roswell PD, Public Safety Office there, and he's a committed member of the Time Partnership. The mission of Time is to develop and sustain a region-wide traffic incident management program to facilitate the safest and fastest roadway clearance of traffic incidences while lessening the impact on emergency responders and the motoring public. Mr. Chairman, I think if one would look this morning at 3:30 a.m. when a crash occurred up on I-85 near State Road 20, where a truck hit the retaining wall, caught on fire. Fortunately, the fire went out. But as we sit here right now, many of those lanes are still closed. And you probably heard on the radio that the whole highway was shut down. Well, about 2.5 years ago, when I first got into this job, I heard about time, and I learned this. About half of our congestion in the metropolitan Atlanta roadway area is due to traffic incidences of one sort or another. And what we have learned, not only by our operation here in the metro area, but seeing what other great states and cities do, such as the Seattle-Tacoma area of Washington State, that if you do a good job clearing those crashes quickly and safely, you free up the freeways. And that's what this is all about, is to get all those jurisdictions together to work to do that. And the reason we wanted you all to know about it is for this reason. I look at this as probably one of the most cost-effective tools that we have in our metropolitan Atlanta area and other metropolitan areas of this state to make our freeways more accessible and safer. And with that, if I could have Mr. Howell talk a little bit more about time, and we'd be more than happy to answer any questions that the committee may have, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. We appreciate it. As Mr. Dallas said, I am a captain with the Roswell Police Department, also vice president of the Metro Time Task Force Group. And again, as Mr. Dallas said, basically time is the management of traffic incidents. And all we're trying to do is enhance that management or the activities that go along with it. So about 3 years ago, Time Task Force was initiated. It currently consists of about 90 agencies in the 13 ARC county region. Along with that, obviously, ARC is involved with it, Governor's Office of Highway Safety, Georgia Department of Transportation, the federal highway folks, Greta, and obviously the HERO units. And I'm sure that all of you are familiar with the Governor's Fast Forward program, where the HERO units will be, their numbers will be increasing and so forth. But again, the goal of Time, or the Time Task Force, is to develop an open roads policy, which is almost a memo of understanding if you want to take it that far. But our goal is, in the metro area, the 13 ARC county areas, is to have a major incident cleared in 90 minutes. Now, obviously, if, like in Tractor Trailers, the incident that happened this morning up at 85 and so forth, there are some situations that do arise from time to time, going to take longer. Fatalities and so forth, yes. But what we're doing is generating policies and procedures in an attempt to get all of the ARC county, 13 ARC county areas to accept and to adopt these policies for the quick clearance. So as part of the open roads policy, we started one in Roswell at the behest of my chief, and developed a TIM team, which is a traffic incident management team. So if you want to look at the Time Task Force as a hub, in the TIM teams as spokes, and what develops at the end of the spokes. So what we're trying to do is to get everyone on the same sheet of music operationally. One of the items in the Time Task Force in the ARC region, that every responding agency will have a list of equipment available to them for emergency situations. So if a police officer pulls up on an incident and needs a 60-ton rotator crane in order to expedite the clearing of the roadway, he has a list of who has 60-ton rotator cranes and who can get there the quickest. So all of these items, the way we look at it, it's pretty much of a no-brainer as far as acceptance is concerned. And that's why I say we're trying to get everyone on the same sheet of music. So along with the open roads policy, the memo of understanding, and what we're trying to do is to, in working with all the other agencies, I said we've got 90, and that includes everything from the DOTs, police departments, fire departments, EMS groups. They are developing their own policies. But the Time Task Force has been tasked with generating and developing a 13 ARC county-wide policy. So far, we've been very, very fortunate. Situation all comes up, and part of the Time Task Force is the steer it, clear it law. We all know that. But it's part of our job is to get that information out to the public in the form of PSAs, or just generally going around and speaking to various groups, which we do. Also, give a lane. That's another situation that we're having problems with. But we're finding that the motorists, for the most part, don't know about it. So it's part of our job is, again, to get this information disseminated, and it's critical for us. So the TIM teams basically are currently involved in interstate, intrastate, and also now on the local roadways, on the state routes. The TIME Task Force, what we're looking at is a generic policy that would address interstate, intrastate, as well as state routes. The Roswell area, we've got just a short span of 400, but when we're gridlocked, we're gridlocked. But yet we've got all the other state routes. City of Atlanta and so forth, again, we're dealing with interstate work. Hero units with the governor's Fast Forward program, that's going to be a big asset too, big help. But the TIM team concept still works on city streets and on state routes. And again, from a constituent standpoint, citizen standpoint, motoring public standpoint, if we can clear the roadways quickly, we've got happy people. And that's basically what we're looking at. Currently, Cobb County just started their first TIM team. They've had training. They're doing cross-training with their police and fire. Gwinnett County had their kickoff for their TIM team concept in August of '05. We started ours approximately a year and a half ago, and we're working pretty much hand in hand with Alpharetta. We're all cross-sworn. We train with fire departments, police, and so forth, so it's a cross-training instance. So it's working. It is for us. We have been working a great deal with the coroner's office as well as the ME's offices. One of the things I've been working with Fulton County is the air card that goes on the laptop computers. So at a crime scene, at a crash scene, our investigators can go ahead, get the photographs, send them via the internet, over the air, down to the investigators. Fulton County ME's office loves it. They think this is the best thing. From a time-saving standpoint, also, and what stirred that was we had a 6-person fatality on 400. We had 400 shut down for over 3 hours because the ME's office could not clear. They were working a double homicide on the south side of Fulton County. So trying to get them up to do their job. If we had that capability, the laptops, we're working on it now. The technology's there, and we're just working the details out with the ME's office, and they're excited about it. We met with the Coroners Association down in Forsyth, down at the Regional Police Academy State Police Academy down there. Some of the other things that we're looking at is working with the Towing and Recovery Association of Georgia, or TRAG, and Jerry Gossett is the executive director. Currently, if the state of Georgia, let's say any of the Hero units or any of the GDOT people are on scene, and they have a record company ask that whatever debris, vehicles, whatever's in the roadway, they ask them to move it. They can move it, they could throw a chain on it, and they could run it all the way down the road, destroy it. If the private sector does that, they're liable. So this obviously is not a fair thing. So this is one of the things we're trying to get worked out into the legislation. So basically, it's a held harmless clause is what we're trying to get working, which Jerry's doing now for the tow and recovery people. Also, the training requirements of the operators, the towing operators, the certification of the operators, again, to expedite the clearing of the roadways. If you get, and we've all seen it in years past, we get a wrecker operator that comes out there and says, okay, let's throw a chain on it and see what happens. We want our tow and recovery personnel trained. It's going to help in the clearance. So everything's coming together. Additionally, one of the things that Florida's doing, and we'd like to be able to copy it, is incentives to the towing and recovery operators on interstate and intrastate clearance. If they can clear their scenes after being told to do so within a 90-minute period of time, there is a proposed figure right now is $3,500 that would be paid to the towing and recovery operators. If it's something that obviously can be cleared within that 90-minute time frame, it's not done so, then the money starts coming out of their pockets. So it's something, from a funding standpoint, there are a lot of the agencies that were involved with the task force that have some budget money that they feel that would be able to feed this project. So again, basically, we're asking you for your support and any recommendations, anything that you feel that would help us in accomplishing our goals, and obviously any legislation that comes across, we would really appreciate your support and your vote on it, very frankly. And I thank you, and just Mr. Dallas said, if you have any questions, we're here.
Are there any questions for the captain? Any questions, committee? Well, look, we thank you for coming on down today. I know it's a long trip from Roswell, given the traffic conditions. But we appreciate you being here today. You know, and I think that any operation that we can have that will reduce the downtime effectively of our highway system, it's got to be good. You have another
It is.
question? What number are you, Jay?
I too want to add my thanks for you coming down and agreeing to testify to us today. I had some discussions with Steve Stansel over at Greta about time, and how you come. Did you say you're getting all the agencies now to work with one another? The State Patrol with the Sheriff's Department with the City Police, and all that. Is that coming about very effectively now?
Yeah. Is that a political question? I don't know.
I don't want to put you on the spot.
You just did.
Good, but we could do better.
It's a politician, yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, we're in the process of working. I mean, there's territories and territorial control that people want, but once they see the advantages of the program and see what the task force is all about, then generally they are in agreement and they support it.
Well, if there's any help we can give you in those areas, please let us know. I'm sure we'll be glad to help you on that. The only other thing I would like to see in your arsenal maybe is just a bulldozer.
We've got bulldozers.
Okay.
We've got bulldozers all over.
Okay. Thank you for coming.
Thank you for your time, gentlemen.
Thanks so much. Is anybody here, we're looking for Representative Hill, if he's around. Well, he's got about 10 minutes.
Mr. Chairman, you're waiting for Mr. Calvin Hill.
Yes.
He asked me that when his bill was called up, that he be called. He's chairing a committee meeting upstairs. If I may do so.
Would you like to do that for us? Thank you, Mr. Dallas. I appreciate it. In the meantime, why don't we move ahead with House Bill 161, and that would be Representative Day. Can we help you with that?
Thank you very much. Please don't, because her hook's bigger than mine. Mr. Chairman, members of the committee, thank you for the opportunity to come before you and present House Bill 161. I believe it's pretty simple and straightforward that in most people's minds, especially since 9/11, that one of our most sacred secrets is our Social Security number. And it's been abused in a number of ways. It's been accessible in a number of ways. And there has been, at least in my time up here from time to time, a question about, do you have to give it to the State Patrol? Do you have to give it to this agency or that agency? And this is to remove that restriction. If the committee agrees to pass this, because of the bill was introduced last year, there are some date changes, Mr. Chairman, that would have to be made in this, and at the request of our new driver services request, I've agreed to change the effective date to one that would accommodate his agency and their continued efforts to be more and more efficient. So, having said that, Mr. Chairman,
The amended date would be?
Under the 4528.1, it would be January 7th of 07, and the effective date in Section 2 would be the same date. January of '07.
Right, January 1st.
Did you have a date specific?
No, sir, January 1, 07.
January 1, '07. Yes, sir.
Yes. No. Mr. Dowd, let's just make sure that we all understand.
Okay.
What we're saying is that the department cannot ask you to have for your social security number to be part of your driver's license.
That's correct.
That's basically the bill.
That's the bottom line.
Okay. Any questions for Mr. Day? Yes, Mr. Bruce, what's your number? I got it. Thank you.
I just want to make sure that I'm clear as to if somebody wants that, because a lot of people can't remember numbers, but they can remember that, and if they don't care, because your social security number is everywhere already.
They would do so at their peril, but the agency cannot require you.
Okay, but where this is crossed out, unless I misunderstand, it's saying they can't, there's not even an option if you wanted to use your social security number. Is that? Yeah, line 12. Well.
I don't have a problem with an amendment, Mr. Chairman, to make that optional. The intent was just,
To not force it.
Not force it,
Yeah.
but
Some
to
people can't
eliminate
remember
some
it, I know
agencies
that.
requesting it and requiring it.
Mr. Bruce, do you have some language you'd like to offer on that?
Well, I think the language is already there, it's just crossed out. Unless I'm looking at something different than everybody else.
I'm sorry.
Oh. Just leave it out. Put it back in. That'd be fine.
Any other questions? Any other questions of Representative Day? Knowing my experience in the driver services offices, when there wasn't really an option, you had to go up there and ask for something different. I think this is a great opt-in situation, and I think that'll save a lot of identity theft issues with people who drop their wallets, lose it, or have them stolen, and have that license number in them. I commend you for doing this. I really think that Real ID and some of the other identification things to follow will probably alter this again, but it won't be with the Social Security number. So we appreciate that.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
So,
Members.
you have a question? Okay. We'll recognize Mr. Dollar.
Hope someone here from the department can answer this question. I used to have, I think, back when I got my license, it was the norm that most people did get their license number to coincide as their.
Was that before it was revoked or after?
Their social security number. Is it, Mr. Hammond, maybe you can answer this question. Is it possible, I've since got it changed, is it possible for a driver's license renewal online for them to change that number?
I'm Les Hammond, the Department of Driver Services. If you're renewing online, you can't change your number.
Okay.
But if you come in, we won't let you have your Social Security number anymore.
Okay, that's all I need to know.
Any other issues? So before us, we have the House Bill 161, and there have been requested amendments to change the line 16 from July 1st, 2005 to January 1st, 2007, and to strike or to unstrike line 13 and 14. Do I have a motion to accept the amendment as read? Second? Second. All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Okay, that gets us to the bill. So do I hear a movement or pleasure of the committee on House Bill 161?
I'd like to make a movement. I'd like to ask this to be done as a committee sub, ask it to be rewritten as a committee sub, and then we pass it as a committee sub. Since we amended the bill, makes it a lot easier for us when we get to the rules and those other things. And ask if that's okay with you.
Appreciate that. Appreciate
and I
that.
do pass as a committee sub.
Second to that? All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Okay, thank you so much.
Come by and see some public safety.
We don't need any advertisements here. Probably get enough as it is. Okay. We have House Bill 1052 on our schedule of agenda today. And that was heard in subcommittee in the hour previous. And Mr. Murphy, well, since Mr. Powell chaired the meeting, Mr. Powell, would you give us the result of the subcommittee meeting?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Subcommittee on Tags and Titles has passed forward House Bill 1052. I understand that there was a committee substitute that was not taken up because of miscommunication and being passed out. There was certain language in it that we brought before the full committee. I recommend it to the full committee.
Thank you, Mr. Powell. Well, Mr. Murphy, you are the sponsor of the bill. You have the floor.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. House Bill 1052 substitute is LC 340527S. I believe that the only language that was changed in this was, let me ask, which line was changed in that? Maria?
Actually, it was a proposal from the Department of Motor Vehicles, Mr. Hooper's amendment.
Doug, which line was changed on that? Do you remember? In the substitute.
Actually, we changed the provision for the dealer license plates for lost or stolen license plates to be reported to the police. I was asking that it be put into the new section 40-2-38.1 as a new paragraph.
Okay.
You wanted that the lost or stolen provision to apply to transport tags in our new code section, just as it applies to the dealer
Right.
tags in existing codes.
Okay.
I'd just like to enforce our little decorum change here, that anybody who's going to testify or has an answer to a question needs to be recognized, and you need to come to that microphone so that people down front can hear you. So,
My apologies
all
to
those
the
people
chairman.
all those people sitting out in middle Georgia who, or North Georgia, or right here. who
I
wanna hear
apologize
you.
to the chairman
You're
and the
on,
committee.
Mr. Hooper. Why don't you just repeat what you said?
Thank you. Members of the committee, my name is Douglas Hooper, Department of Revenue, Motor Vehicle Division. I had asked that the provisions for the dealer license plates related to lost or stolen license plates be included in the new code section as it relates to transporters' license plates as a new paragraph.
Any questions, Mr. Hooper? Seeing none, thank you, Mr. Hooper. I appreciate that.
Again, my apologies.
Mr. Murphy, you want to continue to describe the bill?
Yes. 1052 is, as I said in the earlier committee meeting, 1052, we passed a bill last year which was House Bill 455. And inadvertently in this bill, there was some problems with it in people being able to get their tags, wholesalers and transporters having some problems, and also the auction companies having a problem with the limit on their number of tags they can get. 1052 clears up that language, and actually in Section 1 of the bill, it addresses the wholesalers, the dealers, the used car dealers, and how many tags they can get under this legislation so they can move the vehicles from one area to the other. A wholesaler, of course, will buy 6 or 7, 8 vehicles at an auction and have to move them over to a place, another dealer's place or something like that. So this cleared that language up so they can get the number of tags they need to do this. That was one thing that House Bill 455 inadvertently done, is limit those. So this language in this clears it up. Section 2, simply the transporters, people that transport vehicles like buses. You see the Bluebird buses going up and down the road, there might be 6 or 7 of them. They have to have transporter tags on each one of those buses to transport these buses. along the highways, and the previous bill had inadvertently redefined that language to where you could only get transporter tags for mobile homes. So we had to clean up this bill and change that to where the transporters could get their tags to transport the vehicles that they with the companies they was working for. And of course, we needed it. We needed it immediately, because first time we found out about the language in the bill was in December, when they called and said they can't get their tags. And the Department of Motor Vehicles Tags and Titles allowed them to go ahead and get their tags temporarily until we could get this fixed. And this bill fixes that problem and puts our businesses back on footing that they need to operate. So that's basically what the bill does.
Thank you, Mr. Murphy. Are there any questions from the committee of Mr. Murphy? What's the pleasure of the committee?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
By substitute. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Carried. Representative Hill, if you would like to come forth and talk to us about House Bill 18.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. I appreciate the opportunity to present House Bill 18 to the full committee after it being passed out of the subcommittee with a do-pass recommendation. At the end of the subcommittee meeting, it was noticed that the bill we passed did not have an effective date, so the bill that I presented to you today is a substitute with that only change of being the effective date, which would be June 30th, and that is the last day in which this bill can become effective and still be able to receive federal highway traffic safety funds. And that's the reason to make sure it was in there, and that was a request at the very end of the subcommittee meeting. So that's the only change within the bill. So I present you the bill, and all it does...
Mr.
Yes,
Hill, it appears that we don't have a copy that you're talking about with that change made to it. Was the subcommittee bill filed with the clerk's office or not?
Yes, and I've got copies 1 and 2. I did talk to your to someone from your office about 12 o'clock, and they said they would get the copies. I have the certified copies 1 and 2 with me.
Okay, let's try and expedite this. Could you tell us what you're adding and where?
Yes, and there's a section 2 that states this act shall become effective on June 30, 2006. In fact, Mr. Chairman, you probably should have copies 1 and 2.
Okay.
But that is the only change.
And this was what was passed out of the subcommittee.
Yes, and they asked at the end of it that the effective date be put on it, and that's
It was passed by committee substitute.
by committee substitute.
Okay, all right. Does anybody have a problem with this on the committee? Your number.
What was said in committee, I think I was the one that made the request to feel about the effective date, because there was the concern was in the subcommittee was when would the highway funds be eligible, and since we didn't have an effective date, we didn't know exactly when. It may have been upon signature of the governor, or it could be July the 1st, or whatever. So I think by putting that date in there, it's helped us with our highway funds, and I commend you for going ahead and getting that done. That was just a request that the subcommittee made. He went back and got that done for us.
Thank you very much.
Does anybody have an objection in the committee about moving forward on this bill, considering this committee substitute with only the change noted in the effective date? Is there objection? Hearing none. Mr. Hill?
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. House Bill 18 addresses one small aspect of the seatbelt law. It strikes the exemption for pickups, which have been exempt since day one. The new wording, as you would notice on line 10, and it should be the same on whichever copy of bill you had, we struck the exemption by putting including but not limited to pickup trucks, vans, or other sport utility vehicles. Additionally, because there is a concern, and has been a concern, about the use of a pickup on the farm and agricultural use, we made sure that there was an exemption to prevent the farmer from having to buckle up, unbuckle up, et cetera, as he went about his daily duties. And starting at the end of line 11, we added that such terms shall not include motorcycles, motor-driven cycles, or farm vehicles equipped for and used primarily for off-road agricultural use. And this covers a farm vehicle, his pickup, that he may be using to pull a load of hay from field to field or from town to town. The question is asked, would this apply to him if he's got his fancy little pickup just because he's a farmer and he's driving around 285 at 90 miles an hour? The answer is no. It's designed just for what has been requested to ensure that the farmer doesn't have to buckle up as he goes off and on his regular duties. The same as in the full bill, you have an exemption for people like garbage truck drivers, meter readers that do stop and go. That's been part of the law forever. And it puts the agricultural people into that, allowing them that full exemption. Basically, this law, according to the studies made by various people from the National Safety Council, the AAA, to the Governor's Office of Highway Safety, and they all use some different formulas, so their numbers are not the same, but it's been analyzed to save from 26 to 70 lives per year here in the state of Georgia. It will reduce serious injuries by about 5,000 per year. It will provide, upon passage of this in a timely manner, about an additional $21 million from the federal government to be used for highway traffic safety use here in the state of Georgia. But dollar-wise, far beyond that, by reducing these 5,000 serious accidents a year, we will save the state in economic loss to lost wages, hospital time, insurance, etc., between $35 and $85 million each and every year, and about $20 million of that is Medicaid funds. We all know where Medicaid is going in this state. So we're also putting a serious dent in monies going into Medicaid or being used in Medicaid. It will also create an equality of vehicles on our road. A Chevy pickup truck is basically the same vehicle as a Tahoe. They're driving down the same road side by side. The only difference really is a little bit of sheet metal in the back. In fact, that lightweight rear end actually makes a pickup more likely to go out of control, particularly on water and hydroplane. But those two vehicles, as the law states today, they're drivers and they could be twin brothers. There's no other difference in the vehicle. One needs to wear a seatbelt and the other doesn't. I think that makes no sense, and it's not fair to all concerned. Today, the majority of pickups, even here in Georgia, are no longer driven by the farmer. Certainly all the farmers have them, and many of us that are middle-aged and do some of the other things, but the majority of your pickup usage is, in the reality, used by young males, 20 to 35. For them, it's another vehicle. It just happens to have a hole in the back instead of a trunk. And this is one of the areas we're really looking at protecting, is that area, because those people, as have been indicated by the various scientific studies, if the law was to buckle up, they would buckle up. They do it in their car, but they will not do it in the truck just because they don't have to or feel they don't have to. Even without additional regulation or enforcement of regulation, just the fact that it becomes law, it is felt that at least 70% of those people would buckle up. The bill is entirely bipartisan. The supporters are bipartisan. It's supported urban and rural alike, as we noted in the press conference last week. In fact, AAA went out and commissioned, I believe it was University of Georgia, to do a scientific poll. This isn't a AAA agent. They did blind polling throughout the rural part of Georgia. And it appeared to be, well, it didn't appear, it was over an 89% approval rate, a voter approval rate of having this exemption removed throughout rural Georgia. So no longer can we say, well, rural Georgia won't go for that. In fact, I believe in the metro area it was a little bit lower. It was about 84 or 85%. In the rural area it went up to over 89%. And as politicians, I can guarantee any one of us would just cry for an 89% polling for a voter approval rate. That's almost unheard of. And that shows the overwhelming support by the voters, by the people of Georgia, to protect the people driving pickup trucks. It's a great bill. It meets all the criteria. It saves monies, saves lives, saves injuries. It provides just what the governor asked for, and that's one of our goals this year, and that's a safe Georgia. Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Representative Hill. If members of the committee who have a question, just push the little button by their microphone so I know that you want to ask a question. And we'll start with Representative Sims.
Just a statement. You had
Move
made,
that closer to you,
I'm
Matt,
sorry.
a little bit if you would.
I'm sorry. You had made a statement as agricultural use, but you've also, with your use primarily for off-road use, those are maintenance people going off-road. That also includes the timber industry and those kinds of folks that just may not necessarily be agricultural. That we're talking about off-road use. Is that correct?
Correct. That widens it a little bit. You can't define every single vehicle, or you'd have a list 1,000 pages long. But this is wording, by the way, that has been passed by the State Patrol and run by them, is do they understand what this means and what it would exempt? And they feel that any law officer following the same kind of common sense guidelines that they enforce all of our other existing laws on the roadway today understand what the legislative intent was.
Thank you, Mr.
Thank you, sir.
Okay, Mr. Dollar.
Representative, wanted to get an idea of the intent of what you wanted to do here, in that you wanted to maintain this, stay consistent with the code now, is that just passengers in the front seat are required to wear them and not the entire vehicle.
Today, yes, all we're doing is removing the exemption of a pickup, so it would be exactly like all the other vehicles on the road. And other than that, it would fall under the same requirements as all the other vehicles on the road, a car, a SUV, what have you. It would fall under the exact same requirements.
Okay.
Thank you. Mr. Murphy.
I'm all right, Mr. Chairman. I got no question.
Any other questions for the author of the bill? Thank you, Mr. I'll entertain any discussion concerning the bill. Are we ready to take a poll of the pleasure of the committee at this point in time? Seems like. Okay. By substitute? Which means we'll take the committee substitute that Mr. Hill has put in front of us with that change to the date. Okay. Well, it seems like we're ready to vote. All in favor of passage of House Bill 18, please signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, like sign. Passes. Congratulations, Mr. Hill.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman.
I didn't see the opposed. Oh, I'm sorry. I thought you were going to say something. Okay, I said like sign. That's fine. Thank you so much. And we do have 2 opposed, so the bill carries. And congratulations, Mr.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman and members of the committee.
Thank you for coming. We're going to stick around for a few moments. Are you ready to go? We're going to. Okay. I don't think so. We're going to hear a bill. Hold on a second. Hold on a second.
we've got substitute House Bill 1069. And for the pleasure of this committee, has anybody got their cell phone on them?
Yes, sir.
I want you to put it on that smiley range where you just get the good vibrations off of it. All right, Representative Murphy.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Chairman. 1069 is a bill that it's called the Teen Arrive Alive Bill. And they came to me about carrying this bill a while back, and because of the privacy part of it, and when I looked at the bill, I was thinking, well, you know, you may not believe it, but I was a teenager at one time, and I said, well, you know, I don't know about this bill. But then I got to thinking, and I said, look, you know, back when I was a teenager, you was lucky if you had an AM radio in your car. And I think I had a V8 engine in my car, and it produced all of 95 horsepower or something like that. So, and then I didn't have a CD, and I didn't have a cell phone, and I didn't have a DVD, and I didn't have a GPS device. I didn't have none of this in my vehicle. Plus, there was probably as much traffic in Atlanta as there is in Cumming, Georgia back during that time. So now the traffic has increased, I don't know, 30 times maybe more than that, I don't know. But the teenagers today have a lot of distractions, is my point. And the more I looked at the bill, and we have had a lot of teenage deaths and accidents and tragedies up in our part of the country. And anything that we can do to help these teenagers realize what they're doing, I just thought is a pretty good idea. So what this bill does is it allows for certain offenses, it requests the judge put these teenagers on some kind of tracking device, and the tracking device are defined as it could be a GPS monitoring system, or it could be a bumper sticker that says, "How is my driving?" Now, I really think that probably they would, and I'm just guessing, but I think probably the judges would be more inclined to go along with the "How's my driving?" But in any case, it has to be approved by the parents, whichever one that they go on. And there is no cost to this to the state, because the offenders are going to have to pay for this. Now, is it going to be embarrassing to the teenagers? Probably so, and that's what it's designed to do, is to help embarrass them a little bit into safer driving, and I think that that's going to go a long way in helping to slow down some of these teenagers, and maybe even save some lives and start them paying a little bit more attention to their driving. I think it has wide support. It's in other parts of the country. It's already moving along, and I think it's gaining a lot of steam in a lot of areas. You see these stickers out here now on trucks. You see them on certain vehicles, delivery vehicles, that says, "How's my driving?" And they're designed to try to slow their drivers down. And these are adult drivers in many cases. And it's the same thing. It's designed to slow them down and report any deficiencies in their driving. And I think this is going to be the same thing with this legislation. I think it's good legislation. I think anything we can do to prevent our teens from having accidents is something that we need to do. And with that, Mr. Chairman, whoever wants to speak on the bill.